So welcome back to 3rd Age Reforged and to another battle replay, and we have another 5v3 siege today on the map CIRITH Ungoal or CIRITH Ungoal. I'm not really sure how it's pronounced. The C sound would suggest CIRITH, but I'm sure that I've been told that's wrong in the past. So I'm just going to be pronouncing it CIRITH Ungoal for the rest of this this battle, and if that's wrong then I guess I'm going to sound like a bit of a pillock. But it is going to be Evil on the defence today, and this was actually MSQ2 once again who sent this in, just like the Bua Sagath replay, but this time he is going to be on the Evil side, but he is still going to be on the defenders comprised of 3 armies, and I always feel like the Evil side maybe have a little bit more of a harder time dealing with this sort of situation, purely because you can't get away from the fact that some of their army is going to be sort of more numbers focused, and that isn't really what you need when you're on the defence. But fortunately the 2 Orc factions are Mordor, and this is actually where I think Mordor can really shine, because you can bring all of their really high tier stuff, which this should be enough to give them a bit of a leg up here, and also they are going to be joined by Rune, as you can see over here. And Rune are a good jack of all trades, so they should be able to make up for some of Mordor's discrepancies in a few areas. And CIRITH Ungoal is also a prime candidate of a map for bringing the Dragon's Breath flame cannon, but we shall see if Rune has actually decided to bring that here. But I think we'll go through the attackers first of all. It is worth saying as well that I think another player sent me a replay on CIRITH Ungoal as well, which I think was Cole. But I decided to go for the one which was about 3 weeks old, because I really want to sort of start chipping through my backlog in a more organised fashion, because of course I am like quite far behind at this point, because I've been sent a lot, which I do appreciate, and I do try to get through them all. But I would say that if you're sending me 1v1s or 2v2s, chances are they aren't going to see the light of day on my channel, because I just don't have the time to get through everything. Ideally I would be putting out a video every day, and I'd be alternating between a large scale battle and then maybe a 1v1 or a 2v2 on the off days, but I just don't have the time to do that, and you know, that is before even university has started, so I'm afraid I probably won't be able to get to any of those, at least not for the foreseeable future. But if you do have me some larger battles like this, I will do my best to get to them as quickly as I can, but do bear in mind that this particular replay is about 3 weeks old, so you know, that's kind of where I'm at with some of these replays. If there is one that people are very insistent I show quickly, then I do tend to bump it up towards the top of the list. But obviously, you know, that is few and far between. I do want to give everyone a fair crack after all. We'll go through the attacking armies first of all, starting off on this side. We have Gondor, played by Y2K86, and it does look as though the defenders, or the de facto defenders on this, are going to be sort of congregating in and around the fortifications in the middle. So Gondor has got free reign to move through here. We've seen in the past, I've only shown CIRITH Ungoal once, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't actually slightly concerned about this map, because for some reason knocking down the walls always causes the frame rate to go a bit haywire. I have disabled the particle effects, I believe, to try and make sure that that's not the case, but for some reason on CIRITH Ungoal that was an extremely pronounced effect. For some reason, like, knocking down the walls would make the frame rate slow to a crawl, so I do hope that isn't the case this time, because otherwise we could be in for a very long battle indeed, because it is 54,000 frames. But I think I haven't had any frame rate issues in 0.97 as of yet, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. But we'll go through the army compositions. We'll try and go through that a little bit quickly, because that was a bit of a long-winded introduction there. So Y2K86 Gondor, pretty good in this sort of situation, whether on the attack or the defence, because they are an army all about sort of being able to weather a storm, and whether you're on the attack or the defence, you're going to need to do that in a siege of this nature. Gondor archers with the first level of armour upgrade should be good for sort of putting some pressure on the defenders if they try and dig in, as should the Gondor militia archers. Not a lot of damage on either of these 2 units, to be honest, but they should be able to wear down the defending skirmishers if, you know, the attackers, or the defenders I should say, don't have a good answer to them. Fully upgraded Gondor Spearmen, the armour of course will be very useful for keeping them alive a little bit longer, but both Rune and Mordor both have some fairly distinct armour piercing options, but of course still a solid front line with Spear Wall. Gondor Infantry of course a little bit better at dealing damage and keeping themselves alive against enemy infantry, but of course no anti-cavalry bonus and no shield wall. And then back here we'll start to get into some of Gondor's nastier units, including the Fountain Guard, which we've seen can be very effective more recently. General's Bodyguard going to be the Wardens of the White Tower. We have some Axemen of Lasarnak, again fully upgraded, some Pelargian Marines, and then a Gondorian Catapult way here at the back. So a pretty good army here, pretty standard fare for what you'd expect from Gondor in this particular situation. Just to his side we have HRE Mini 4 Ninja, who's going to be playing as Dol Amroth. I've never seen that name before, so welcome if you're a new player. Dol Amroth, of course, natural allies with Gondor. He's got some Dorananil pikes, some Dorananil swordsmen. He's got some Haven Guard in there, some Ethelond halberdiers for some AP, some dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan, which in many ways are similar to the dismounted Knights of Annúminas. Multiple HP, very good for sort of buffing your morale as well. He's got some Untitled Champions, so some good heavy swordsmen with high base damage and fear-causing effects. His general, actually, here, Imrahil, is going to be in one of the units of Black Swan Renegades, which is an interesting choice. 2 units of them. Some Doran Ernil swordsmen, some Tirith Aya marksmen, some Ethelon men-at-arms, some Tirith Aya lancers, Doran Ernil swordsmen, and some Ethelon men-at-arms as well. So that's a pretty big army, actually, that from Dol Amroth, but a lot of it is made up of Doran Ernil units and sort of basic Ethelon units, but there are some decent elites in there scattered throughout as well. Then we have Secretariat, who's going to be playing as Rohan here. He's got his Red Shields of Erkenbrand, a very nice looking unit indeed. I really like this unit model for them and the Westmark Marshals, probably my favourite in the game actually. Really like the sort of dangling chain from their spectacle helmets. But a good bow cavalry, melee cavalry hybrid. Don't know how useful that's going to be on a map where, you know, it's a very corridor focused map. But it could still be useful against any Mordor sort of cavalry as well, but we shall see. Medusal Guard, which I think is going to be where the general is, yeah. A very, very strong unit, both in melee and at range. They cause fear, very powerful with their javelins. Shield Maidens, extremely high base damage on their projectiles, very good for dealing with phalanx units in particular. Westmark Marshals and Helm's Hammers making up a very strong AP core for Rohan. And we also have a lot of Westmark infantry and spears as well. Good to see a more infantry-focused Rohan build, which you kind of have to on this map because cavalry just doesn't have room to breathe. It's good to have a couple of units to have a bit of mobility, but still not maybe the best idea to bring a whole bunch of cavalry like Rohan usually does. Riddermark Archers and then a full front line also of the Riddermark Axemen, so a lot of AP here, which should be useful actually against Mordor. Riddermark Archers, however, are still very basic archers, but it should be enough to put some pressure on the defenders. Then we have a second Gondorian army, actually played by Newbie 1. He's got some Gondor Spearmen just with the first level of armour upgrade. He's also punted for some Guards of Osgiliath, which of course pikes are always useful in this situation, provided they don't get shot. Gondor infantry fully upgraded this time, so they'll be able to sort of fill the role of that line infantry even better. Axemen of Lasarnak, once again, I think actually that's only their first level of armour upgrade, but even so, you know, they're still going to be significantly tankier than other basic axemen from the Human Kingdoms. Wardens of the White Tower once again back here, so a lot of sword and board units on display for the attackers here, trying to weather an arrow storm potentially. Some more Fountain Guard, of course. Some Veterans of Osgiliath actually, so a nice line infantry, bow infantry hybrid, very, very nice unit indeed. We have some Gondor Militia Infantry, just the basic variant without the armour upgrade I think as well, so very much the fodder for Gondor here, and then a unit of Palakia Marines. And then the final army here, we have yet another force from Dol Amroth, so the Triumvirates here, down in the south and eastern portion of the Free Peoples of Middle-earth, marching against the forces of evil. So actually quite a lore-friendly battle in many ways. Ethelon Men-at-Arms and Halberdiers here from the Guardian 1. Spelt slightly incorrectly, but no matter. We have some Doran Ernil Pikemen and Tarnostian Spearmen back here as well, some Perithil Champions, Dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan. We have some Belfalas Marines also. Some Tirith Aya Lancers. It's actually good to see that they haven't gone like fully in for the most expensive cavalry, because it would be of questionable usefulness. Although I say that, they have gone for some Arathirim and some Knights of the Silver Swan as well. We'll see. I mean, maybe there is slightly more room over here than there is in the middle that Rohan have available to them, but we shall see. Definitely it's over here where cavalry would see its most use, but it looks as though Mordor is going to be moving off anyway. The first of the Mordor armies, we're going to be seeing Starkiller X, and actually this is the first time, in a replay at the very least, that I'm going to be showing these lads off. From Battle for Middle-earth 2, we have the Beasts of Gorgoroth, which of course are basically like mini Mumakil. You know, they work in much the same way, which of course means that they have pretty much the same counters. Mumakil are quite difficult to use, I feel like, in 0.97, because most people will plan ahead for them. Of course, if you have no counters against them, they can be devastating, but most people will bring one. Perhaps as Mordor, though, they're less likely to, but there's still plenty of javelins on the attackers, so we'll see if the Beasts of Gorgoroth are any use. But of course, when you have this much money to play with, you may as well bring them. Sauron's Will, very good AP troops, of course. We have some Temple Executioners in there, Morannon Infantry, Olag High, Sauron's Will, Orc Archers, just for some ranged use, some Adunaim Shadow Bows, Temple Guard, you'd expect all the high tier stuff, and indeed that is what is here. Minas Morgul Chosen, some Blackguard, and then some Mountain Trolls, so pretty much what you'd expect. You know, all of the high tier units pretty much here in force. Morannon Halberds, we have some Morannon Halberds. I'm not sure whether MSQ intends to sort of hold his position here. I don't think that would be a good idea. He definitely needs to come to the aid of his allies if he leaves them to die. He's going to be facing off against 5 armies all on his lonesome. Adunaim Shadow Bows, Temple Guard, we have some Morannon Archers over here as well, some Olag High, some Sauron's Will, more Sauron's Will, Blackguard. We have some Mountain Trolls. It looks as though instead of the Beasts of Gorgoroth, he's gone for some Melkor's Chosen, which could be a very useful thing, just to really shut down enemy cavalry. Actually, no, he does have the Beasts of Gorgoroth as well, so that's complete nonsense, as I was saying there. Troll Catapult, though, and some Temple Executions. It looks as though, yeah, the Troll Catapult I think is a good idea, because obviously it's fast-moving and artillery is going to be very useful against the attackers here. And then finally, we have Rune, played by the Vengeful One. He's got some Carmel's Shadow Bows in with some Nar Rim, some Loka Gamp Rim, some Balchoth Tribesmen. He's got the Mighty Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen, who of course can do significant morale damage as well. Nar Rim, Scion Rim, either side of another unit of Gamp Rim, some Nar Rim. It looks as though he's set up his army just to position these stakes just so, and then he's going to move according to how the attackers move, but no cannon, which I think is a real shame, because on this map in particular it would be devastating. You put it here and you'd already be able to rip through the Gondorians. We can see the Carmel's Chosen, Nar Rim, and then some Carmel's Dragon Knights, and I think that is just about it. Indeed it is. So I will make a little cut here, because I do think the attackers will sort of shift themselves around before genuinely laying siege on the defensive position, so I'll rejoin when the battle is joined. So it does look as though we're about to get underway here, as the Riddermark archers start to encroach upon Mordor's territory here, and they are going to be trading blows with the Morannon archers. The Riddermark archers are really quite a low tier arch unit, and their armour is not fantastic, so I'd actually expect the Morannon archers to be able to win here, especially seeing as they are getting the first volleys off, which can be all important in a duel between two slightly lower end archers. I'd also think the Morannon archers maybe have slightly better armour just from looking at them, but you know, yeah, I'd say the Morannon archers should fairly comfortably win that, so it's going to be a bit of a dead heat there for Rohan. But the first thing I would suggest, just from looking at the formations here, is actually, it looks as though we're actually going to see a bit of a melee engagement already here, as the Athlon men-at-arms try to come forward and stop the Balchoth tribesmen from shooting them, but definitely it looks as though a ranged focused approach here from Rune, and yeah, immediately you can see here the Guardian One sending forward his Athlon halberdiers into a situation they are ill prepared for, unshielded. They may have not terrible armour values, but here the body piercing arrow is going to be ripping through them. Maybe a bit of a wasted volley there, which in this sort of situation you really don't want as Rune, but at least he now knows that there are Carmel's Shadow Guard here ready to attack him. But yeah, Rune definitely going for a more skirmish focused approach, which actually for me is the green light for both Gondor and Dol Amroth over on this side to attack very quickly with all their infantry, because I don't feel as though Rune would be able to stand up to both of them, especially not if they attack from two directions, which that's actually the thing that I would suggest already here, that the attackers maybe aren't doing as well as they could. They definitely need to sort of reposition themselves. You really don't want to be giving the defenders the luxury of only focusing on a couple of choke points, because that's exactly what they want. They have not got as many men as you. You could argue as well that overall their quality could be lower, because all of these attacking armies do have some decent units at their disposal, and over the long haul their numbers and their quality together should be enough to really do some damage. But you really need to be attacking down this side as well. Like, Rune's lines here are pretty thin, but also over here you can see that there is no army marching here through the middle where Rohan started, and at least one of the armies I think needed to do this. To give them credit, they are starting to fan out now into this canyon as well. It does look as though Gondor are the ones that are going to be taking responsibility for that. But maybe Rohan, considering they're a little bit more fragile overall, you know, maybe they did the right thing by not marching through here, because this would definitely be a pretty difficult avenue of attack to take. You know, obviously the terrain certainly favours the defenders, and also skirmishers that are based around the fortifications can also start shooting down here. But like I said before, getting smashed into oblivion for the sake of your team is sometimes the best thing you can do. And I feel as though one of them maybe should have taken the responsibility for doing that. Maybe Dol Amroth should have, because Dol Amroth went right around the back to march in behind Gondor and Rohan over here, Mini 4 Ninja. And I feel as though, you know, in terms of organisation, you know, the attackers need to be hitting the defenders from as many angles as possible here, because I do feel as though that will yield the appropriate results. And also it's worth saying, you really don't want to be attacking in sort of small quantities here. You can see here the Carmel's Dragon Knights charging in. Maybe getting a bit of a weak charge off though, because the Athlon men-at-arms don't seem to have taken too much in the way of losses. And they are now actually getting into the Carmel's Shadow Bows and doing a bit of damage there, so the Vengeful One may be guilty of getting a little bit greedy here, trying to get ideal engagements off a little bit too much, and now you can see that the Carmel's Shadow Bows are also getting shot by some archers in the background as well. The Athlon men-at-arms are wavering though, they're in a pretty disadvantageous situation here. They are going to be able to get into melee with the Balchoth tribesmen though. Like, I'm really surprised the Shadow Guard didn't charge into them. High charge, good armour piercing on them. They'd have been able to break the Athlon men-at-arms very, very quickly. As it is though, I think it's actually going to be the friendly fire which ends up breaking them. Yeah, I think the Vengeful One here, the cause of this is not sort of poor play, it's more greed. I think he's trying to be as efficient as possible with his infantry. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but it is costing him valuable skirmishers, and skirmishers of the sort of highest priority as well. The javelins and the rangers are absolutely two types of units you really want to be utilising to your fullest extent if you are the defenders. And the Dragon Knight's one good charge. I think I see why he didn't though, because he'd have to charge in and then charge back through his own stakes, so that's a problem. But it's good to see here that the attackers are taking advantage of every possible avenue. Newbie 1 is moving his Gondor army up over here, but so far you can see that the Guardian is sort of, he's just probing the lines. He's definitely had the worst of this engagement in spite of my criticisms of Rune's defense here, but it is worth saying the Shadow Guard are getting shot up here. The archers have done a pretty decent job thus far back here from the attackers of whittling down some of the more vulnerable units, which is perhaps why the Vengeful One is having a little bit more in the way of difficulty. But I would say that, you know, getting the Gamprim and Scion Rim wheeled around here, getting them ready for just a straight up line battle might be a good way to move forward. The Shadow Bow's trying to shoot from the front at the Ethelon Men-at-Arms, but shields and armour, that won't be the worst fate that the Dol Amroth armies can imagine for themselves. And you can see there's a big Gondor army and not many runic soldiers. I can't help but feel as though Rune has spread themselves a little thin. It might have been more worth their time sort of trying to defend a little bit closer to the fortress, considering that's what their allies have done. You can also see here that the Dol Amroth player from the other side, Mini-4 Ninja, has got some Tirithea Lancers in behind the line here, and this could be a very profitable venture indeed. The Tirithea Lancers are not all that elite, you can tell from the fact that they're winded from charging around the battlefield. But they can still get a decent charge off. They are still Lancers, so we'll see what they go for here. I probably wouldn't go for the Carmel's Chosen, if only because with their multiple HP they're quite likely to survive a charge from basic Lancers like this. Instead I'd probably wheel around and start to help out the Gondorian advance, which is now beginning in force. You can see here the flaming arrows from the Nar Rim coming across. The Dragon Knights are over there I suppose though as well. And here they come. They're going to try and go after, I think, the Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen. No, they are going to go for the Carmel's Chosen. They're going to get up to charge speed. How many will they kill? They're going to get a couple, I think. Or are they? Yeah, they do get a couple. But like I said, the multiple HP nature of the Carmel's Chosen does mean they're going to be able to stand up for that. And that was facing the wrong way as well. But it is worth saying as well that the Guardian is going to send forward another probing assault. I can't help but feel like he's single-filing his men to their doom here, because this is where Rune are at their strongest. Whereas over here, Rune are a little bit weaker, and I think that Newbie 1 is absolutely doing the right thing here by coming forward in more numbers, because I just don't feel as though that Rune's thin defense is going to be able to put up too much resistance for too long. It is Scion Rim and Gamp Rim, which is, they're two units which can hold the line for a good amount of time if you don't send forward the appropriate units to deal with them. And with the Nar Rim shooting in as well, even though Gondor is shielded and armoured, that should be a little bit of support that the runic front line so desperately needs. But I do feel as though Gondor should be pushing up some more units. I think maybe just a single unit maybe of Axemen of the Sarnak, or if he's feeling particularly bold, even some Fountain Guard, because that would certainly be enough to tilt the infantry engagement heavily in Gondor's favour. The numbers are already a little bit much for Rune to deal with, I think, and now the Dragon Knights losing their bottle a little bit after the archers send them packing, and I feel as though the Vengeful One, he is going to need to start being bold at some point. Rohan, however, coming forward and into a situation where they're not really going to be able to do too much, I think. I mean, the Shield Maidens are coming forward to try and maybe get some damage done, perhaps on the Beasts of Gorgoroth? Yeah, that is what they're going for, but it's worth saying the Beasts of Gorgoroth, the Shield Maidens are not javelins, so they won't do the damage to the extent that is needed to kill the Beasts of Gorgoroth off extremely quickly, but that will still be enough to do damage to them in the long run. But Shield Maidens, yeah, I feel as though that is an important distinction to make. You know, the Axe Throwers, oof, that's a little bit worrying there. I thought I'd frozen, but no. The Axe Throwers I would always be tempted to use against. Morannon Halberds are the perfect target for these Axe Throwers. They'd be able to do tons of damage to them. And I do feel as though, again, a bit of a probing assault here from Rohan. But this, we'll see. I mean, Rohan are known for maybe being a little bit more on the fragile side. And without a genuine assault coming from this side, from the Gondorians, I do worry a little bit for them. You know, Gondor and Dol Amroth are both factions which last in that sort of situation a little bit better than Rohan because of their heightened armour values, a little bit more focus around defensive infantry rather than offensive. Not really so sure over here. I mean, Westmark infantry is still very strong, to be fair. They should be more than sufficient to deal with a lot of these basic Mordor units. Minas Morgul Chosen, maybe not. But with the Westmark Marshals on the front line, I mean, that's Axe Throwers also. You can see there the Javelins from the Beasts of Gorgoroth coming in. So, from a ranged attack perspective, with Javelins, they're probably better than the Mumakil. But from a melee perspective and just overall stats, the Beasts of Gorgoroth are weaker than the Mumakil. They definitely don't want to get too deep in there. I mean, there are still the shield mains, but the shield mains need to be focusing a little bit more on some of these units at the front. Well, on the other side, Dol Amroth coming forward, still just probing the runic lines, and I feel as though at this point, Rune are there for the taking if you send forward your whole infantry force, but they're lagging behind too much. Again, this is a sign that the Guardian is a newer player. The fact that his army is very stretched, his reinforcements are far too far away from the front line. But of course, you know, not terrible. I mean, to be fair, even though he is a newer player, he's still at least attacking, which most new players tend to err a little bit too much on the side of caution. But he is at least probing the lines, and eventually Newbie 1 should be able to come to his aid, because I can't imagine that Rune are going to be able to stand up to this for too much longer. On this side, the Carmel's Dragon Knights trying to get in, but they didn't really manage to get up to charge speed. They didn't really have too much room to do so. And there are spears in here as well, it's worth saying. It was enough to sort of shake up the Gondor infantry just a little bit though. Still the runic flaming arrows doing their thing, and now they're going after a target which is much more like it. The Guards of Osgiliath, unshielded. Very nice position for them there. Most of the Gondor infantry that came forward before them was shielded, I should say. So we're able to stand up to that sort of arrow fire a little bit better, but now not so much. The Axemen of Lasarnak have come forward, which again is good to see. Rune are not the most armoured faction, but they do still have some units which are decently armoured, and the Axemen of Lasarnak, just with their base attack, should be enough to unsettle the runic front line here, and already the Narim from behind, and this is where this front line falls apart. Rune over on this side, of course. On the other side of things, there are two Mordor armies to support one another with all their numbers, but on this side of the fortification, it's just Rune. So I do feel for the Vengeful One a little bit here, because he did have a lot of ground to cover, a lot of avenues to try and block the enemy from coming forward. The Balchor Sapphire Bladesmen moving forward. Much like the Meduseld Guard, they're a very strong unit of javelins and a very strong unit of infantry as well. Some Doran Ernil pikes moving their way forwards. So still, Rune holding up, but you can imagine that won't be for too much longer. Meanwhile, still a lot of trolls, still the Beasts of Gorgoroth, and Mordor have got a lot of punch in this army between all their trolls and their Beasts of Gorgoroth. If they decide to commit them all at once to one particular avenue of attack, they could probably smash it to bits, but my question would be, can they do such a thing? There's a blue triangle over here, which is that Rune? It is. There's some Baltroth tribesmen which have returned from routing, but they've returned right in the middle of Gondor and Dol Amroth's preparations. Gondor militia archers still poking and prodding away at the Mordor lines, but again, Mordor have got enough disposable manpower, and this is the beauty of playing as an evil faction on the defence. You can sort of withstand this sort of prolonged skirmish phase just by sending your garbage units out in front, and you don't mind so much if they fall away. And the downside to Gondor and Dol Amroth not attacking quicker through here is Rohan are paying the price for it. Rohan are still able to get a good deal of kills over here. You know, their shield mains are being committed to melee, which suggests that they've used up all their ammunition. The problem they have, however, is they're just not able to make a dent in this strong Mordor front line, with the Minas Morgul Chosen acting as its centre and all of these skirmishers backing it up against the more lightly armoured Rohirrim. They are in a bit of trouble. The Beasts of Gorgoroth are here. Do they still have some javelins? I don't know if they do, but they and the Olag High, I think, are going to start wading into the Rohan lines, which is going to be bad news for them. A lot of the Rohan units at this point are shaken, even the Westmark Marshals. I think the Shield Maidens, they do have a morale buffing effect, which makes them incredibly difficult to break. They might even be locked morale. You can see here the Beasts of Gorgoroth just wading into the Rohan lines, and that should be enough to start breaking up this Rohan assault. There are some Riddermark Axemen back here, and they're already under arrow assault. So Secretariat is having a bit of a rough time of things, but I feel as though that's less his fault and more the fault of his allies for not moving in quicker. Because, you know, Mordor are able to point the lion's share of their archers in this direction of Rohan, which is the last place you want them, really. Because Gondor and Dol Amroth are just sort of, you know, they're not really moving in quickly enough. The Melkor's Chosen are routing. They have managed to deal with them. But the Melkor's Chosen, I feel as though they were here to also just delay the Gondorian assault, because I feel as though Mordor are fully aware of the fact that if Gondor and Dol Amroth don't move in, they can continue to feast upon Rohan. One of the Beasts of Gorgoroth has fallen, getting stuck up against the Rohirrim infantry, and with Riddermark Axemen coming in as well, that's more damage. So you can see there that that's a situation where the Mumakil probably would have been able to get away. The Beasts of Gorgoroth are also running amok now in their own lines, so that does go to show the Beasts of Gorgoroth are a little bit more fragile than the Mumakil. I would argue though the javelins probably make them worth it in that respect. Like I'm a big proponent of javelins, especially in 0.97. Still, Rune's skirmishers are doing a big number on Dol Amroth here. I think the Guardian maybe has thrown away a little bit too much of his manpower at this point. However, over here, the Gondorians actually force back. I mean, to give Rune some credit, they have managed to continue to hold this front line. The Axemen of Lasarnak coming around the side, the Wardens of the White Tower are in here. Now, it's only a matter of time before Gondor does sort of force Rune back, but, you know, the Vengeful One has managed to sort of salvage this front line for a little bit longer. The Balchor Sapphire Bladesmen are on the front line, and in melee with those concave curved swords, they're going to be able to do a lot of damage here to the Axemen of Lasarnak. Multiple HP. Not a lot of armour though, as I'm sure you can tell, so arrows might be the answer here. Ithelian Rangers are targeting the Knights. They're trying to charge into the Wardens of the White Tower, doing some damage, but the Runic Knights are definitely on their last legs at this point. As yet more Gondorians come forward, another unit of Wardens of the White Tower, so that's... No, that's not the unit of Wardens of the White Tower, it's Gondor Archers. Nice UI. Carmel's Dragon Knights still being targeted down. The Carmel's chosen and the Wardens of the White Tower going toe to toe. Usually the Wardens of the White Tower would win that, but with the damage they've already taken, maybe the Carmel's chosen can win that. But at this point, the rest of the Runic line is finally giving up, which is the sign that Gondor are finally going to be victorious over here. And that's maybe a sign that, you know, Vengeful One again maybe shouldn't have tried to salvage this front line. He did well by doing so, but it was always a lost cause, and I think he sees that at this point. And the Carmel's chosen are going to try and get away. Whether they will be able to, I'm not so sure. The Gondor Archers are kind of blocking the way at this point. Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen lining up for a shot, and there they go. It looks as though they've got some body piercing going on, which would put them in the same camp as Blacklock Engineers. Like, I'm not sure what changes have actually undergone for the Dragon's Wrath and crossbowmen, Blacklock Engineers. Still trying to sort of slow down their advance with the Carmel's Dragon Knights, the Balchor Sapphire Bladesmen broken and fighting to the death, but they were in melee, so that again suggests that they used up their ammunition. And for all of the difficulties that Rune has had on the other side, they have at least managed to do a lot of damage to this Dol Amroth army over here. Whether that will be enough or not remains to be seen, especially seeing as they haven't killed this Dol Amroth army. So yeah, Troll Catapult over here as well. How are Rohan getting along? The Medusel Guard are coming forward. But still, Rohan have basically been stopped dead in their tracks. Mordor have held very steadfastly against this Rohan assault. Medusel Guard, and this is the issue, I think, you know, a lot of the supporting skirmishers for Rohan haven't been able to get into a good position. Rohan, again, have been at the mercy of most of the Mordor defences. And still it's a skirmish fight here, and still it's a completely pointless skirmish fight in many ways from the attackers. Because the Gondor Militia Archers and the Orc Archers are just trading shots, and neither side is going to care too much about the fate of either of those units. But it looks as though now, finally, Gondor sees the necessity of moving in a more genuine attacking force. Gondor Spearmen moving forwards with Gondor Infantry. That's some dead Beasts of Gorgoroth, which I think... No, you can actually pass right through the dead Beasts of Gorgoroth. Like I said, like Mumakil, their corpses are solid entities, which can make them really awkward obstacles, but it doesn't look as though that is the case for the Beasts of Gorgoroth. The ones that were running amok already gone. Catapult there. Still Dol Amroth, this army is in perfect health from Mini-4 Ninja. What have we got going on over here? Morannon Archers, defeat seems certain. Only a military genius could win this battle. Yeah, now at this point, this is maybe where Mordor had been caught on their heels a little bit. They perhaps should have seen the fact that the Gondorians were now coming forward and that these archers were just going to get swept aside. Because now they're going to have to put up more of a defence than just archers. And, you know, you can see how much focus had been put in over here. But this is interesting. Bit of a foray into enemy territory, as it were, as these Olag-hai, the Mountain Trolls, and the Beasts of Gorgoroth, and some more Mountain Trolls are going forward. And I think maybe this is... It'd be interesting to see who they go after here. Maybe they go after Rohan, because, I mean, the Red Shields of Erkenbrand are not Lance Cavalry, so charging into the Trolls and the Beasts of Gorgoroth would not be advised. So perhaps Mordor see this, if they're quick, as an opportunity to wipe Rohan from the field. And they're not wrong, actually. That is a big force that they're sending around. It's whether or not they can be quick enough, though. And, of course, they will be being peppered by the Red Shields all the while. And they do now need to put up a defence against Gondor, because Gondor are coming forward in force. It's a lot of infantry that is bearing down on their position. Fully upgraded infantry and spearmen. And a single unit of Morannon infantry will only hold up for so long. Some Temple Executioners would do a lot to help, but even so, that's so much infantry that just one unit is not going to be sufficient. Some Blackguard. Blackguard would be, I think, in conjunction with the Temple Executioners and Morannon Halberds. And Rohan are going nowhere, so, I mean, they are free to commit forward some resources. That is a big committal as well, which is good to see. They see the danger, and they are going to answer it. Meanwhile, it looks as though actually Mini-4 Ninja sending most of his Dol Amroth army around here to try and help finish off Rune, which is an interesting gambit. Poor Vengeful One has definitely been the defender which has seen the attacker's wrath most of all so far, but I feel as though he's probably gotten a lot of kills here on this one Dol Amroth army, and Newbie 1 now also taking damage, but it's, again, is Gondor Militia Infantry really worth going after? You'd be much, you know, again, they are multiple HP, but hitting them in the back where their shields aren't coming into play might be a better idea here against the dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan. Going after Gondor Militia Infantry smacks of maybe trying to pad your kill count a little bit, but you can see here Gondor now really collapsing in on the Runic Infantry. It's only a matter of time before we actually start seeing an assault on the fortress itself. Yeah, and those body-piercing projectiles ripping through the Gamp Rim. Pockets of Runic resistance cut off now from one another. Nar Rim retreating back into the fortress as well as some Gamp Rim. And to be fair, Rune have saved something of an army. Maybe more of a platoon than an army at this point. But, yeah, it's been difficult for Rune. I feel as though they had probably the most difficult situation, because the attackers most certainly did take advantage of all the avenues of attack they had over here, more so than they did on the other side. And they were aggressive over here on the attackers, more so than the other side, which definitely helped them. And definitely hurt Rune. We shall see how this goes as it progresses, because there's no siege equipment over here on this side, I don't think. So I think they will have to go through the fortress the old-fashioned way. They don't even have anything to get through the gates, actually. They might even be fully reliant on Gondor's catapult to let them into the fortress here. Meanwhile, let's go and see what's happening over here to the rear assault from the Trolls and the Beasts of Gorgoroth. One of the Beasts of Gorgoroth actually falling there. And that does make some sense, because they are mounted units and the Red Shields are melee cavalry, but in pure melee against Trolls, they're going to be in hideous trouble. Medicel Guard trying to shoot their javelins at point blank, which is another really big problem for the Beasts of Gorgoroth. But you just think here, with the amount of Trolls they have, Rohan are in trouble. I mean, the Olag High are so powerful in melee. There goes the Rohan General. Trolls and Beasts of Gorgoroth, I think maybe they need to force through one unit of Trolls just to recharge this front line over here. Even if it's just a unit of Mountain Trolls, because that would be enough, I think, to scour Rohan from the field. Is that what they're going to try and do? Those Riddermark Axemen are wavering. It's only a matter of time before they break, and indeed they do. Unsupported against this many Trolls. And there you can see a focused amount of force there, and I think the Red Shield's going to be all that Rohan have left after this, because Rohan are doomed. The Beasts of Gorgoroth are heading towards their backlines. The Trolls will be not long behind them. And again, I don't feel as though this is entirely Rohan's fault. In fact, I'd put very little of the blame on Rohan. Maybe they were a little bit too gung-ho in moving forward before their allies were ready. But I mean, there was really nothing stopping Gondor from attacking down here quicker than they did. And you can see here, Blackguard and Barad-dûr are routing, and this is the fruits of attacking earlier. You know, Gondor are now sort of sweeping aside this defence, but it's only a matter of time before they're going to be able to focus on Gondor, because Rohan at this point are on their last legs. The Trolls and the Beasts of Gorgoroth are smashing their infantry into the dirt. Very nice play here by the Mordor armies, and now Mordor are going to be able to reposition their defences to meet the advance of this Gondorian wing. Arrows flying into the Gondorian army, but they of course will be able to stand up to that far better than Rohan, with the exception of the Temple Guard, of course, with their armour-piercing arrows. They will be able to do damage to anything. Meanwhile, you can see here, setting up on this side of the fortifications. I'm actually very surprised that Mini-4 Ninja is over on this side, because he started off effectively over here in this section of the map, not in the canyons, of course, but he started off over here, and he's wound up pretty much on the opposite corner of the map, on a map where it's quite difficult to do that, because it's quite labyrinthine, and you'd expect defences to be set up, but he is over here now. But actually this might turn out to be the wrong call, because I feel as though his presence on the other side will allow them to sweep Mordor aside and win. Actually, it looks as though... Yeah, so the gates here, it's purely a cosmetic entity. So they can just... It's essentially an open gate. So the attackers can move in whenever they so choose. Some Silent Room. It's actually interesting to see no units of Flag Rim whatsoever from the Runic army. Olag Kai now moving back towards the fortress. You can see here, celebrating over the defeated dead of Rohan, and now Gondor, where they could have been having a two-pronged assault with Rohan. Now it is just them. And the Mordor archers, limited damage though they may do, should be enough support to keep this Mordor front line chugging along comfortably for some time. There are some Dol Amroth units here, but it's Doran Ernil swordsmen, so it's not exactly the last word in terms of quality. Now you can see some mountain trolls, depleted though they may be from their heroics against Rohan, are going to wade in here and try and do some damage to the Gondorian front line. Damage they may do, but I think there's Fountain Guard in there, so it's going to be pretty devastating for them. There is Axeman of Lasarnak as well. In comes some depleted Sauron's Will, also units that were fighting Rohan earlier, I believe. Just being sent in to try and help stem the tide here against the Gondorians. Forward comes some Sauron's Will. I think, are the Beasts of Gorgoroth all dead? I think they were all killed off by the Rohan infantry, and considering there were Helm's Hammers and Westmark Marshals in there, that's maybe not the most surprising thing, but they did their job. They helped crush Rohan. They're expensive though, so, you know, we'll see in the results screen how many kills the Beasts are actually able to get, seeing as it's the first time we've actually seen them. I must say, CIRITH Ungol is looking quite verdant for this time of year, considering that it is effectively within Mordor's borders. It's looking quite pleasant. Didn't know Sauron had taken up gardening, but you can see here that Dol Amroth sort of preventing any sort of counter-attack by getting their pikes into a V formation. I think they're just waiting. I think they're waiting for Gondor to make something happen on the other side. You can see here as the Narim are up on the walls. Some Carmel's chosen here on the front line as well. Yeah, this Gondor militia infantry is charging in, but they're going to achieve nothing. They're just going to be thrown to the walls. 50 good men immediately going to rout on contact with the Runic defenders. Yeah, they were never really going to achieve too much. You can see that the Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen are in position here as well with their sort of Nafatoon-esque projectiles, their sort of fiery pots. Not a huge amount of damage they do, to be honest with you, but it is armour-piercing damage, so every little helps. Mordor are starting to siphon off more of their resources back towards the fortifications. I think fearing perhaps an all-out assault from the other side and feeling as though maybe Rune isn't going to be enough to sort of win that fight all on their own. Because honestly, I feel as though Mordor, if they did focus on Gondor and what resources Dol Amroth does have over here, they could probably win this fight. Sauron's Will on the front line with the AP, the Blackguard sort of making the mass so that Gondor can't just push through them. There's actually some Nazgul here as well, which we've missed in the army selection screen because it's quite difficult to see them, but there's some Javelins in there as well though. Good positioning on the Javelins there by Y2K86 with his Pelagia Marines. And he's going to be able to do a decent amount of damage there to this Mordor defence. Here come the Trolls again. I don't know if this is the right call though, actually, because that is a strong front line, and it does include strong units like Fountain Guard and Axeman of Lasarnak, who are pretty well positioned to deal with Trolls like this. So this might be a bit of a major misstep. I mean, we'll see. This many Trolls should be enough to cause a bit of havoc here in the Gondorian and Dol Amroth lines. Dol Amroth are sending forward support in the shape of these Doran Ernil swordsmen, but I'm not sure whether that's going to be enough either. There's another unit of Olag Kai. It's good to see that Mordor have been consolidating their strength and they've been pushing in big blobs, which when you've got this many Trolls and that many Beasts of Gorgoroth before they perished, that's exactly what you want to see. That, however, is ideal use of the Gondorian catapult. Right into the centre there of the Mordor lines. They need to be careful though, because some friendly fire on the Doran Ernil swordsmen could send this whole army running for the hills. There's some Athelian Rangers. They're having to shoot up into the air though, so maybe not as effective as they could otherwise be. I did also see the red shields of Erkenbrand there in the background, charging in and out of the Orc archers, so still Rohan proving to be a thorn in Mordor's side. But yeah, with those catapult shots... Ooh, that's actually routing from the Gondorian, so yeah, they must have gotten a bit of friendly fire here. In addition to the damage they're taking at the hands of the Trolls and the Sauron's Will, maybe the catapult used a little bit too aggressively. Sending forward some Warns of the White Tower now, but I mean, with that routing, I would suggest that a lot of those units should come back. And I think there you can see that I think the Troll's going to be pulled off this front line. The damage already done. There's still arrows being utilised back here. The Orc Archers standing and shooting, even in the face of being cycle charged by the red shield. So Rohan, this is what I like to see. You know, a lot of players, I think, would sort of lose their temper and sort of admit defeat at this point if they are Rohan, but Secretariat is not doing that. He's still trying to do some damage for his team and try and do some damage here to the Mordor Archers, which are making Gondor's life a little bit more difficult. The red shield, yeah, they do rout now at the hands of the Olag Kai, which I think is it for them. Riddermark Axemen are routing. The Beasts of Gorgoroth are running amok back here in the corner. Not exactly where Mordor would want them. But there's still fighting going on here on the front lines. Orc Archers being committed forwards. More Dol Amroth troops. So Mini 4 Ninja, to be fair, he does have a decent amount of forces over here. I thought he committed more over to the other side than he actually did. But still, they're having a little bit of trouble getting through here. I think the attackers should be able to eventually. But it's definitely going to be rough going. We're about at the halfway point now. And actually, the attackers are a long way back. 15% down. Which is it's a big gap to try and make up. And I feel as though a lot of that comes down to the fate of Rune over on this side. I think the Vengeful One was put to the sword very efficiently, particularly Newbie 1. Did exactly the right thing against the runic defences. They are sort of filtering in here at this point, though, the attackers. And I mean, to be fair, outside of... I also feel that I feel as though something's telling me that even if they do knock down the walls, those gaps aren't actually traversable. So I mean, the attackers do still have to deal with narrow choke points here later on, including Troll Catapult. There's some Adunai Shadow Bows. So while they are ahead, I do feel as though they are in a bit of a precarious situation here. Now the Rohan player at Mr. Feet, because of course he's got nothing left, so he may as well. Still, this bloody fight in this canyon continues as Mordor continue to hold back the encroaching forces of Gondor and Dol Amroth. The clubs and the big blades of the trolls being swung, the Orc Archers being added to the front line just to provide a little bit of extra manpower. They're unlikely to get many kills at all in melee against the calibre of units they're facing off against, including Haven Guard, Dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan, and Wardens of the White Tower. There are more and more routing units though. Some of the Olag Kai are here in the backfield, going after the Tirith Air Marksman. There's also that Gondorian Catapult, which I think is the true prize here. Some more Tirith Air Marksmen are waddling their way forwards. It's going to be a difficult task here, I think, for the defenders, just because the discrepancy is so high. But it's not impossible, as I said. Like the defensive position the fortress itself offers, I think, is going to be fairly key here as we move into the late game. I can only hope that the battle isn't spoiled by a plummeting frame rate, as my last fight on CIRITH UNGOL was, but that was more than half a year ago, so I'm fairly certain we should be fine. More trolls moving forward, and the catapult's trying to escape at this point, as the trolls have managed to get through. A lot of these units are routing. The Tirith Air Marksmen are here, but arrows are not what you want to be using against Olag Kai. They will be able to shrug that off all day long. And the catapult is under real scrutiny here. And I think even if the attackers do manage to get through here, the force they have, when all is said and done, will be very depleted. Another unit of Sauron's will be committed to the front line as well, so the defenders are not willing to give this canyon up just yet. Perithil champions, I mean, it is primarily elite Dol Amroth and Gondor infantry on the front line now. I don't know, I mean, I don't know if this Sauron's will is going to make the difference they hope it will, but maybe. Well, there goes. I think, yeah, that was the Dol... Was that the Dol Amroth general, or was that a Mordor general? Because the Nazgul are over here, but so too are the Haven Guard. Well, actually, no, because Mini 4 Ninjas general was in a Black Swan Renegade unit, wasn't it? So it must have been a Mordor general. Tirith Air Marksmen shooting at point-blank range. They should be going for the Sauron's will if they can help it. That would be a very good target for them. The catapult has now managed to escape, but these Olag Kai are feasting upon the Tirith Air Marksmen instead, doing yet more damage, and that'll be another unit of archers that the attackers will not have access to in the late game, and the Tirith Air Marksmen are pretty much defenseless. They're trying to stand and shoot, which maybe isn't advisable when you've got an Olag Kai right there. You can see here that there are some perpetually routing Doran Ernil pikes. I think still the attackers on this side are just waiting, biding their time. Adunheim shadow bows are trying to get into a sneaky little position over here to shoot right through the ranks of the enemy, but they've been seen. They should be able to wriggle away though. The Rangers should be significantly faster than the Perithal Champions. They better hope so anyway, because the Perithal Champions, even as depleted as they are, should be enough to put a real dent in the Rangers, and that's not a loss that the defenders can really afford at this point. They're going to be able to get away though, I think. Too big a task for the Perithal Champions to get there. Meanwhile, still, over here, I think actually the Sauron's Will have made a big difference. That AP causing a lot of damage here to the front line. And I think with the Nazguls still there, depleted though they may be, the defenders might well have a very significant victory over here. Especially considering that the Olag High is still going after the catapult. If they can kill the catapult, that is a massive gain for them. Because that means, you know, all my wonderings about whether or not you can pass through the gaps in the buildings as you make them will be put to an end, because they won't be able to. The catapult will be gone. Yeah, Y2K is trying to get his catapult crew away, but the Olag High, they're not going to let them escape, as well they shouldn't. Another one of them getting killed there. The CIRITH marksmen, I think they're still trying to force their way through here, and you'd expect, to be honest with you, with the CIRITH marksmen support, those Sauron's Will, they are taking a lot of damage, to be fair, but whoever wins over here, it's going to be a highly Pyrrhic victory. And I think, seeing what way the wind is blowing, the attackers on this side should maybe think about just moving in, because it will put more pressure on the defenders. They had cavalry. Ooh, and I think with cavalry, that's a different matter entirely. I think MSQ2 has gotten entirely too greedy here with his rangers. Is he going to be able to get back into the fortifications in time? I'm not sure he is. There was a Knights of the Silver Swan as well, so they've got a pretty nasty charge bonus of 15 on them. And he is just about going to be able to get there. I think the hill is going to come to his aid. Yeah, the cavalry just being slowed up by the incline. He's very lucky. He's a lucky boy. I think he won't be attempting that again with the cavalry in such a close proximity. There are 2 units of Adunheim shadow bows back here actually, so still a lot of body piercing that the defenders can call upon here. And here you can see some Nar Rim from the Vengeful One moving over here. I think maybe just sort of make sure, because it looks like they are out of ammunition, so I think he was sending them over here just to ensure a defender's victory over here. And he does have it. What have we? CIRITH marksman. See here the Olag High is still running down the catapult crew. You can actually see some more support coming over from Nubi 1. Veterans of Osgiliath, Wardens of the White Tower. I mean, all of that together should be enough to kill the Olag High, and I think that will be enough also to save the catapult crew, which is a significant save. They're going to need the catapult, I think, the attackers, to really pile the pressure on the defenders. There's some CIRITH marksmen ripe for the picking over here, though. Maybe chasing them a little bit far. I think the time has come for the defenders to pull back and make the attackers try and take the fort from them. Oh, here come the Knights of the Silver Swan, though. Good use of the cavalry here from the Guardian. He's probably been the attacker that has been sort of picked apart. Well, I say that, Rohan were, but he's definitely not had the easiest of times here. Oh, the Knights of the Silver Swan, though, they stop. No, that's a terrible mistake. Big error, that is. If he'd have followed through on a charge against any unit, it would have been better than doing that. Another slight pause there. That's slightly concerning. I really hope we don't crash. I really hope my computer doesn't freeze either. At least in the event of a crash to desktop, I can just resume from where we left off, whereas in the event of a freeze, I think it's all over and I need to start right from the beginning. Which would be very heartbreaking on a battle that's 54,000 frames long. Olag High making their way back, Nazgul, some arrows making their way into the Knights of the Silver Swan, but again, Knights of the Silver Swan, armour and shields. I do feel as though they are still a bit too expensive for what they are, the Knights of the Silver Swan. I don't feel as though they really offer anything, but you know, I much prefer units like the Serpent Guard or the Aerin of Aldberg. Knights of the Silver Swan feel quite lacking compared to them, and I can't quite place why. But as a unit of Lancers, they are still in a position here where they can do an awful lot of damage. But there's Nazgul over here, they're caught in melee. And I think a little bit of inexperience is shining through here as his cavalry continues to get stuck. He's bleeding unit models, and this is a big win here for the defenders, because it means they're going to be able to save a lot of these units, which by all rights should be being skewered on the end of those Lancers. As it is, though, Looks as though they are going to be able to take out one of the very deadly units of Dol Amroth Cav. Some arrows coming from the fort, I think, itself. Now they're going to be able to pull back all of these units, the defenders. They will still have to defend from this side as well, with Newbie 1 sending some forces around. But Temple Guard are shooting, actually, so yeah, definitely eager to make sure those Knights of the Silver Swan do not come back. I think they did finally manage to get a charge off, but it was only into Narim, but at least it is a charge. Going around here, they have managed to save the catapult crew, which in and of itself is worth it. And they also need to attack the fortress from both sides. If they allow themselves to be bottled up just here, then they're going to be in a hideous position for the enemy skirmishers. But it's good to see here that Dol Amroth are trying to force the issue. But this could obviously lead to some quite horrendous losses as the Troll Catapult manoeuvres its way into position. They need to start shooting quickly though, but of course the pathfinding in Medieval 2 is the thing that nightmares are made of, so I would get some Adunheim Shadow Bows over here as well. I mean, this is too good a target to pass up. This is exactly the sort of blob you need to be killing off as quickly as possible to close that percentage gap. In comes another unit, the Wanderers of Nimrodel. That's interesting. So they're trying to get into a position where they can shoot, and they are in a position where they can shoot. So this demands a response here from the defenders, and they are going to get some Narim into position. Yeah, they need to do something quickly here because those Scion Rim are going to get absolutely ripped apart by the Nimrodel Rangers. And I feel as though the defenders here, I think they're flailing a little bit. Their defences were not set up in position beforehand, and now they are perhaps paying for that. Because both units of Wanderers of Nimrodel are here. Scion Rim, as heavily armoured as they are, that's still going to take its toll, and it's something that the defenders can scarcely afford. The Narim are now in place, and they are going to be able to shoot in here, which is good, but with the numbers that they have to make up, I'm not sure whether the attackers can afford such things. The Bulldogs of Durthang, who they may use swords, but they are actually an armour-piercing infantry unit. And back come all these defenders. Are they leaving a rear guard here? Perhaps? Nope. Well, technically yes, there's 2 Morannon archers, but they will last all of 2 seconds. They'll probably rout before getting into melee, to be honest. Dol Amroth really trying to force the issue here. The Adunheim Shadow Bows getting into places they probably should have done far earlier. What are they doing? What are you shooting at? They're not really in a good position to be shooting. The Troll Catapult is trying to get into position here, but it's just not happening for them. Well, something needs to be done here because Dol Amroth are making ever more progress. And all on their own, these units of archers are not going to be enough to stop them. As impressive as those flaming arrows look, they are only just as damaging as regular archers. There goes Imrahil though, because those are the Black Swan Renegades. The AP useful, but Dol Amroth paying for it with their general. And that can actually have a pretty big impact. Yeah, now you can see that the Rangers getting engaged in melee, so Dol Amroth there. 2 newer players doing exactly the right thing, pushing forward in a big blob and exposing the attackers' Rangers, and now the body piercing has been denied them. More reinforcements are needed from over here at this point, and the Bulldogs are coming, the Temple Executioners are coming, Sauron's Will, but a bit slow on the uptake here, the defenders, and as I said, can they really afford this? I mean, the Narim are doing their best to put a hole in Dol Amroth's manpower. And to be fair, I mean, with no defences over here, Newbie 1 is free to sort of march into the settlements as he sees fit, but defenders don't really have too much of an option at this point because of Dol Amroth's aggression. Good to see from newer players. Too often, as I say, newer players are too conservative, but these guys aggressive. And that's what I like to see. The Troll Catapult needs to shoot. It needs to get into a position here. It's been flailing around too much already. Narim moving across. There's still some Temple Guard out of ammunition. Even just 11 of them could be enough to make a significant difference. Adunheim Shadow Bows now getting into position where the Narim once were, and that will be body piercing projectiles, which should put Dol Amroth under far more pressure than they've been under thus far. Orc archers, 24 of them. I mean, they have stopped Dol Amroth in their tracks, but of course this leaves the door open for the expeditionary Gondor force on the other side if they hurry up. A little bit stretched out perhaps, but Newbie 1 has the opportunity here to be his team's saviour once again. This is a significant development as well. The Wanderers of Nimrodel able to occupy this wall getting in through the tower, and that of course means that they will have a perfect position to counter-shoot into the Adunime Rangers, or the Adunime Shadow Bows. I think the Mordor Rangers actually have some pretty decent armour for Rangers, so if it was just 1-to-1 they should win. But of course the Mordor Rangers really need to be going after the infantry. There's actually some big routing going on in here, which is a pretty substantial development. And let's not forget as well that some of the manpower left to the attackers is bound up in their cavalry, which cavalry in a situation like this is about as useful as a chocolate teapot. They are not going to be able to really lay down too much effectiveness because they can't really get up to charge speed in these narrow confines, so they're just going to have to wander into melee. And the Arathirim, where are the Arathirim? Are they still alive? They should be. Knights of the Silver Swan, or are the Arathirim still alive? Did they? No, they didn't. They're still back there. I was going to say, I was wondering if they'd charged through stakes, but they haven't. Still Dol Amroth, there's a lot of routing going on in here still. But at this point, of course, there's going to be another fight erupting on the other side as the Gondorians start to make their way into CIRITH Ungol. Fountain Guard up against the Dunime Shadowbows, a very one-sided fight indeed. The Fountain Guard once again may prove to be the match winners for Gondor. There's still a long way in this fight to go though. So it's not as if the defenders are just going to roll over and have their tummy tickled. They are going to stay and fight. CIRITH Lances moving in. Athelian Rangers, who are, I think, trying to go after... Well, no, they are actually shooting into the back of this defensive position, which is actually a very nice shot. Very well spotted there from Nubiwan. And now the Wanderers of Nimrodel also doing the same. I mean, at this point, it feels as though the defenders are right where the attackers want them. 2 units of Rangers with good shots into the defensive positions. The defensive artillery refusing to shoot. The defensive archers not really able to get into good positions. And now you're also potentially going to be able to get cavalry in here, which while it may not be at its most useful in this situation, they'll still be able to run around with superior mass. And there's the Gondorian catapult as well. Yeah, everything's coming up attackers here. It looks as though CIRITH Ungol is destined to fall unless the defenders can pull off something very special here. I mean, the walls are starting to fall and the frame rate is not tanking, so that's a good sign. There goes the other Imrahil. Still, I mean, there's a lot of routing and wavering going on over here, but now it's just Nar Rim that are holding the line, really. There's some Sauron's Will. Any Nazgul? Nazgul might be an important one. Wanderers of Nimrodel are going to try and get out of there. They're wavering. They could break. I just feel as though the manpower the attackers have left to them is going to be too much. Orc archers are trying to screen the catapult. The CIRITH Lancers, to be fair, are going to take huge losses going through here, but it's worthwhile to try and force the issue here. You're not going to be able to use the cavalry for anything else. Here comes the Gondorian catapult, once again getting a nice hit there into your Dunime Shadowbows. Fortuitous perhaps, but a good hit nonetheless. Temple Guard victory seems certain. Only a fool could lose this battle. Athelian Rangers out of ammunition it seems, but still useful in melee nonetheless. Another nice hit there into the Mordor Rangers. Yeah, and at this point the Troll Catapult has just not been able to get good shots off. The Wanderers of Nimrodel actually now able to attack into the side of the Nar Rim. I think more reinforcements on foot are needed through here, even if it's just archers that are out of ammunition. I think more is required. Was that the Gondorian General? Possibly. I mean, there's still a lot of elites left for the attackers here. The Bulldogs are going to be good against the Gondorians. I mean, it doesn't matter now. I think both sides have lost their general. Temple Executioners, Temple Guard, everything being committed to just try and stop Nubiwan's advance here into the fort. But there's still units waiting outside. I mean, yeah, it's more cavalry though, I suppose. That catapult has been useful so far, doing yet more damage to the fort itself. Not really able to get a good shot anymore because most of the units are sort of by proxy behind those turrets. Yeah, and at this point I'm not really sure that Dol Amroth, there's a lot of these units which are just routing in place, so Dol Amroth have come to a bit of a roadblock here, which could be exactly what the attackers need, or the defenders. I'm so used to calling the evil side the attackers. could be exactly what the defenders need, because it means that they can focus more of their attentions on Gondor, which they really needed to, because Gondor's assault was dangerous. But at this point, it has flopped back the other direction. The attackers need to push more heavily on this side now if they're going to have any success, because Newbie 1 has been stopped and he is attracting the attention of pretty much all of the elite units. Now I think the Narin being taken off the line to maybe try and get the Troll Catapult into position. 10 Knights of the Silver Swan trotting into the fort. Still a close fight this, it could still go either way. More units coming in as well, Gondor archers. There's also the Arathirim, but again, they're knights, so you know if they do manage to get a charge off, that could be what wins the match for the attackers, but it's going to be very difficult for them to do that. There's not really anything anti-cavalry left for the defenders though. Obviously just charging in from the front for Knights of the Silver Swan here, walking in is not really going to be the answer. The Sauron's Will is maybe the closest thing they've got to an anti-cavalry, an anti-armoured cavalry unit they have. Still 6 Nazgul fighting hard. The catapult crew now out of ammunition, committing themselves, trying to keep this assault going. I'm not sure whether they're going to be able to though. This unit of Gondor archers, if it still had ammunition, it should have been committed forward far sooner. Between those rangers and the catapult and that unit of archers, they could have done grievous damage, but now, all on its lonesome, I'm not so sure. It could still be the difference between victory and defeat, we shall see. What have we got going on over here? There's still 2 Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen, and they should still have ammunition. Trying to get into place. Tirithea Marksman taking up a good position on the wall, finishing off those Adunai Shadow Bows, denying the defenders that body-piercing projectile. I'm not sure whether the attackers are stuck here on this hill, because those units are perpetually routing. They have managed to get some Perithal champions through, but not enough, I think, to kill the trolls. Which is a shame, because even a half-healthy unit of Perithal champions could probably deal with the catapult trolls. Yet more arrows flowing into this defensive position. The Athelian ranges break, so Gondor's assault on this side of the fortress has been stopped. And I think that's pretty much the end of Newbie 1's army. So he's done well in this battle, Newbie 1. He's done all the right things, more or less. But will his allies be able to follow through and give the attackers the win? We shall see. And it does look as though now the attackers are able to start filtering through units. They can't be blocked, I don't think. Maybe they are, though. Maybe they are stuck there, which, again, is maybe the bit of luck the defenders needed, because their backs were to the wall for a little while there, but now maybe they can turn this fight around and start thinking about winning it. Gondor archers still trying to shoot in. Again, like against these sorts of units, they won't do huge damage, they won't get loads of kills, but it is still worthwhile because they need those arrows to do something for the team. Meanwhile, here comes another unit of Tirithea Lancers. Again, they're just having to try and force their way through, but with the Bulldogs, with the Temple Executioners, the damage they're going to take on the way through is going to be far too extreme. And they are not going to be victorious today, I fear. There are the Temple Guard. Still 32 of them, which is a pretty significant amount. The Nazgul over here, though, have decided to move over and try and deal with the Tirithea Marksmen. A lot of these units have actually cycled back around to this side. Perhaps that does have something to do with the fact that these units are kind of stuck. Gondor archers moving in over here, and those Pelagia Marines are trying to kill the Nazgul. Not the worst idea. Don't know whether they have the best of angles. Temple Guard are over here as well. Arathirim. Yeah, there's a pretty decent chunk there, including Guards of Osgiliath, which pikes could be exactly what the attackers need to keep those elite units from Mordor at arm's length and just slowly but surely chip away at them. Because the defenders really are running out of men at this point. Like, they have very little to man the fort with. But we shall see. I've seen stranger things happen. And with these elites, like the defenders, if it comes down to just pure strength in melee, not counting the phalanx formation of pikes, it should be a win for the defenders, this, I would imagine. Yeah, and the Nazgul victorious against the Tirithea Marksmen, very unsurprisingly. Temple Guard actually still have a bit of ammo. What are they going to go after, I wonder? Because you would think in this situation, Arathirim, but, well, you'd think in general Arathirim, but maybe not in this situation, because how useful are those knights really going to be? if you can plan the engagement correctly. I think they are still going after the Arathirim, which is understandable because there's nothing else really that you could consider to be elite. The Guards of Osgiliath are too close to the walls, otherwise I might suggest going after them. So, yeah, I'd still say go after the Arathirim. Because if they do manage to get a charge, of course, it could be game over. CIRITH Lancers routing the Athenian Rangers. And you can see here that they must be stuck. Like a lot of these units are routing, to be fair, but the units that aren't routing must be stuck on the units that are, otherwise they'd be flooding into the settlement as we speak. There's still 4 Nazgul over here. They're going to charge in, and sort of just... It looks heroic, these 4 brave souls holding back this entire force. A very strange addition indeed, and you know, you could say that if that wasn't happening, the attackers would be winning this fight, and you would be correct, but again, they sent forward their units in a big old clump, and it's unsurprising that they did start to rout. So I mean, it looks perhaps more devastating than it is, because it's not as if all of these units would be flooding in, because the units that were routing, which is a big portion of them, would be running for the hills. So yeah, I mean, here come the Arathirim, and without really... Well, I mean, there's still a defence here, which is fortunate. They managed to get a charge there. Not devastating though on the Temple Executioners. I think they only... Yeah, they killed 2. And the Arathirim are going to take losses on the retreat. The Arathirim let me down hardcore in the last battle I used them. 20 of them routed on contact when I had the golden opportunity to wrap up the enemy line. And they routed. So they are definitely not in my good books, but there's no doubting the fact that as Lance Knights they can still be utterly devastating if they get the right sort of charge off. Cycling right back outside the fortress once again. The defender's now going to make use of the curves. That's going to make it very difficult for the Arathirim to get any sort of charge off. And over here, the Nazgul, still 4 of them left. Most of these units are routing, of course, so they won't fight back, which of course means it's just going to be a case of slowly but surely mulching this Dol Amroth force into the dirt. A close battle indeed. The replay file was called down to the wire, and I can see why. I like this sort of orc clutter that is part of this map, and Khan Doom, and I think as well like Ruins of Dol Guldur, Plains of Gorgoroth, that sort of thing. Temple Guard. Pinging their arrows. And they're still going after the Arathirim, and a couple more of the Arathirim actually dying off by the looks of things. So, I mean, it's now or never, I think, on this side of things. I think they just need to move in, the attackers, because I'm not really sure what they're waiting for. Like, there's not really anything that's going to happen over on this side that's going to really... They might be trying to get their Gondor archers into a position where they can shoot once again, I'm not sure. Ooh, the Dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan have managed to get free. Those Nazgul are still in there, there's only 3 of them left, but they've poked the bear somewhat here, the defenders, and now the Knights of the Silver Swan and some Perithil champions able to get into a position where they are able to get forward, so now might be the time. And here come the Arathirim, but they're not able to get a charge off, they're just going to walk into melee against the Temple Executioners. The Orc archers routing in place as well. The Bulldogs are still in good health, and Bulldogs of Durthang, as I said, AP, very useful. Another one of the Arathirim falls. And at this point I feel as though it's just a case of when the attackers want to commit forward everything, because I feel as though it has to be now. They managed to wriggle some units through. Now is the time, and I feel as though Nubi-1 agrees with me, because he's sending forward his Guards of Osgiliath. He may as well send forward everything as well, because if he loses the Guards of Osgiliath, the rest of his units are not going to have what it takes in melee to defeat these units. The Arathirim are going to lead the way, and they don't get a charge off. If they'd ordered a charge on the Bulldogs, that could have been absolutely vital, but they didn't. And now they're quite likely to lose a couple more unit models. There is Imrahil. Victory seems certain, which is surprising. I would have thought the AP of the Bulldogs would be enough to tilt that fight in the favour of the defenders, but I suppose not. There you can see the Temple Guard, ooh, very nice position. Very, very nice position from the Temple Guard here. And they're going to be able to shoot into the Guards of Osgiliath, do some nasty damage to them, and then I think traverse that bridge and get back to the defensive position up here. But it's going to be difficult still for the defenders, because now Dismounted Knights of the Silver Swan from this side, the Arathirim are going to be able to get in. And the Arathirim at this point have got a golden opportunity to cycle back here and actually get a charge off. Which, as I said, that could be the difference between victory and defeat. The Gondor archers still have ammunition. All these perpetually routing men are just sort of hanging around in the fortress. The Troll Catapult is going to try and make something happen. You can see here the Temple Guard. Gondor immediately saw what was happening and are going to try and kill them off. But I mean, Temple Guard in melee are no joke. They're going to be able to hold this down for quite some time, and all of these infantrymen would be far more useful for the attackers taking the high ground, taking the fortress. There's dismounted Knights of Silver Swan killed, and the Arathirim, perhaps. This could be decisive. If the attackers go on to win this, it was because the Arathirim didn't go back here and charge. Because they could have, and they could have finished off the Temple Executioners and the Temple Guard that was still up here. The Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen, there's only one left, but still, that's a... If you're going to have one unit of anything left, as Rune, you'd probably choose that. Maybe a Carmel's chosen as well. Here come the Guards of Osgiliath, though. The pikes are going to be a difficult obstacle for the defenders to overcome. They can use the catapult now, though, because it's on flat terrain. You would imagine this is the moment that MSQ2 has been waiting for to use his Troll Catapult. And this is going to be it. I mean, the Arathirim need to get back here, really, to try and stop them from shooting. Do the Gondor Archers still have ammo? I mean, the Gondor Archers are not really going to be able to deal with the Troll Catapult in a timely fashion. Ooh, that's a miss. A critical miss. They were there for the taking and the Trolls missed. Gotta love that siege engine RNG, even at close range, the catapult. Letting the side down, the Temple Guard. Probably going to be overwhelmed eventually here by sheer numbers, but not before taking its toll on the Gondorian infantry. I think this Dragon's Wrath Crossbowman is going to try and block this Arathirim from getting through. That's a far better hit there, right into the heart of the Guards of Osgiliath, and routing them as well. And the Guards of Osgiliath, they've got some decent morale on them. Broken and fighting to the death. Here come the Arathirim. They're going to come in here, but of course the Trolls, as far as the catapult crew go, far more adept at looking after themselves. To be fair though, the other unit of Guards of Osgiliath, the one that didn't rout, manages to kill off one of the Mordor generals. Here the Gondor Archers are now going to force their way through their allies to try and get up here and assist, but all of a sudden it's looking like the defenders are going to come out on top here, because I just don't think the attackers have got the strength left. And yeah, those Gondor Archers were able to just push their way through, so in the end those routing units had no bearing on the outcome of the battle whatsoever. So in the end it's more just sort of looks can be deceiving, I suppose. Troll Catapult fighting hard, Temple Guard, only 5 of them remaining. Temple Executioner, I mean there's not many left, to be fair. It's gonna be a tough ask. I mean, these Temple Guard victory still seems certain. Gondor infantry, Pelagia Marines, I mean, you'd imagine just through sheer weight of numbers they'd win, but even then they're going to have to come up here and defeat what's left of what's over here. The Gondor Archers at this point being attacked by the Troll Catapult crew. Is that a Warden of the White Tower in there? No, it's just an officer. The Arathirim are still here. Ooh, the frame rate's starting to struggle a little bit. Classic CIRITH Ungol. Temple Guard's still over there. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happens to the frame rate on this map. There must be something wrong with it, but at least this time that wasn't really the case. We managed to survive this long, and it's only really right towards the end where the frames are starting to chug a little bit. But it's still anyone's game. Troll Catapult trying to remount. I mean, Imrahil's still there making a nuisance of himself. There's still 75 Gondor Archers. Yeah, and I think just through the power of the units they have remaining, I think the defenders are somehow going to be able to pull this out of the bag. And a few key moments I think would decide that. Rohan, you can look at it from both ways. You could say Rohan, maybe they were a little bit too, they moved in too quickly. But I feel as though the blame more rests on the Gondorian player over there, who should have attacked at the same time as Rohan, because effectively Rohan was focused down and killed. Very, very nice work by the defenders to do that. Of course, they deserve credit. But by the same token, Rohan maybe should never have been put in that situation in the first place. The Guardian, a new player I would imagine, but still maybe wasting a little bit too much manpower into Rune initially, and considering Rune had a bit of a torrid time in this battle at the hands of Newbie One's Gondor army and then some flanking Dol Amroth cavalry as well. That was perhaps a situation that could have been avoided. Despite some good gets actually being made over there, like maybe getting into the Rangers, getting into the Javelins as well, from Rune being maybe a little bit too greedy for themselves. But still. Yeah, I feel like a few mistakes from the attackers. The defenders, for the most part, did very well though. I think, other than Rune maybe being a bit over greedy, as I said early on, with their skirmishers, didn't really do too much else wrong. I think in particular the two Mordor players in conjunction with one another over there to finish off Rohan, and then also to win the second fight, which happened for Gondor. You know, Gondor were dragging their heels, of course, but still very, very well done from them. Looks like the Guards of Osgiliath are actually going to be victorious over here as the Temple Executioners trying to get out of there, and the Gondor Archers. So technically speaking, the fortress... Oh no, the Gondor Archers have been routed off, but yeah, I mean, technically victorious over here, but the question is... I mean, these forces up here, yeah, they're going to rout, which is going to free up the Temple Guard and what's left of the Troll Catapult crew, although they're falling away pretty quickly at the hands of, I would imagine, the Axemen of Lasarnak. Still anyone's game, this. I mean, do the defenders have what it takes to actually kill off the pikes? I mean, they can attack from multiple directions with the Temple Executioners, I would imagine. Yeah, very, very good fight, and I do feel as though the defenders kind of deserve the win here, because in particular that really powerful flanking attack to finish Rohan off impressed me. Most people, I think, would be far more conservative because they used the entirety of their trolls and what was left of their beasts of Gorgoroth to do that. And that takes guts, and that's something which oftentimes is not showcased by players. But they did so here, and they reaped the rewards for it because they won very heavily on this side of the fortress. They lost over on this side. Oof, that frame rate though. Yeah, it must be the particle effects from the buildings. It must still be an issue on this map. So I would urge people in the future, as punishing though it may be, to go about attacking in this manner, I would urge everyone on this map to not utilise siege equipment to attack the walls, because it really hurts the game for some reason. I'm not sure why. But at least it wasn't. It used to be way worse. I mean, it must be like turning off the particle effects must have helped me here, because I was getting like literally 0.1 frames a second when I did this battle last. It was truly a horrifying thing to behold. The Temple Guards still have ammunition, which that could be the difference here, because they'll be able to shoot into this formation here of Guards of Osgiliath, do some damage to them, soften them up, and then in melee... Oh, there's Nazgul as well, yeah. 5 Nazgul, 24 Temple Guard, and 1 Troll. If they can soften up the Guards of Osgiliath, I think that's going to be it. The pikes alone will not be enough to give the attackers the win here, and I think rightly so, for the reasons that I've already mentioned. I really do rate the way the defenders played in this battle. In a 5v3, I always feel like, especially on a map like this, where, you know, there is a little bit more dynamic, it's not just straight going into choke points and just sort of grinding yourself down, like it can be fought on different parts of the map. I always think that the attackers have got such an inbuilt advantage here that the defenders kind of can't win unless certain things go their way, and they did in this battle. And even then, I do feel as though Newbie won in particular from the attackers played very well. But I don't feel as though he is going to be enough here to give his team the win. Maybe the Pikes will. But with Nazgul, I'm not so sure. Come on, let's go, guys. The time has come to finish this battle off at this point, I think. Times 2 speed. Yeah, looks like they're going to move forward. 1 remaining troll could be useful as well. What are they doing? Moving away from the door. That's an interesting gambit. Oh, hello. Ah, there are the Nazgul. So they've revealed themselves over here. So yeah, pincer move. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to back themselves up against a wall to allow... Yeah, so those Guards of Osgiliath are routing, of course. The Nazgul should be more than enough to deal with that one Arathiran. And of course, unfortunately for them, they haven't quite managed to set themselves up as well as they could. And the Temple Guard are going to be able to attack into the sides of the Gondor Archers and Guards of Osgiliath, which I think that is going to be the final death knell here for the attackers. But a well-fought battle indeed. Exactly what you want to see, a really close, beefy siege. Of course, CIRITH Ungol is not new to 0.97, it's a map that's been in the game for quite some time at this point. And I like it, honestly. Because it is a siege still, with this fortress here in the middle. There goes Imrahil, finally finished off by the Nazgul. But there's also a lot of other areas to the map, there's a lot of interesting areas. The fort is just sort of the thing that everything is centred around. And this is going to be the end. There's still fairly... 1 player has admitted defeat. There's still some Guards of Osgiliath over here. I think considering the frame rate being what it is and my desire to not zoom in and crash at this very late stage, I think we'll just go up to ×2 speed and sort of hover over this engagement. To be fair, the Guards of Osgiliath probably won't rout off easily, and indeed, that is how it's proving to be. Come on, guys. This is the problem with low frame rate as well when the game starts to chug, is it's really difficult to control the camera. I think the frame rate is getting progressively worse as well, interestingly enough. Still, we won't have to suffer through this for too much longer. This is going to be the end. In fact, let's go to ×6 speed. Although I'm not really sure it'll make too much of a difference with the frame rate being what it is. Yeah, this is a map which suffers from that, and I'm not quite sure why, but I would urge people not to use catapults on the walls. I know that some stray shots can hit it, but it really does. It hurts the replay. I mean, to be fair though, like, I'm probably not going to be using CIRITH UNGOL again for a long time anyway, so this was a good map with which to use it on. Like, I'm going to try and show each map. So I'm going to try not to reuse maps unless I absolutely have to. And I know that a lot of people want to send me like Rivendell battles. I've shown Rivendell so much at this point that I'm really going to give that one a long break. You can send it to me, but just be aware that I'm not going to use it for a long time. Especially when I have to cut down on my schedule a little bit when university starts. It'll take even longer for me to get through my backlog then. Good lord, yeah, I think I'm just going to make a cut and then sort of show the results screen at the end, because the frame rate really is getting worse at this point. So here we are at the results screen, and it did end 99% to 98%, and the frame rate at the end there did get just as bad as it was before, so the particle effect disabling obviously did nothing. It's just a problem that plagues this map, and I'm not sure why. But yeah, like I said, it's probably not going to be an issue, because I'm not going to use this map again for quite some time. But of course, the results screen here, and I do feel as though both the Mordor players deserve a joint MVP status in this match, because they worked together very, very well. It's not as if the Vengeful one did anything particularly wrong, it's just that he was sort of marooned out on his own against those attackers, and there was only so much he was going to be able to do against that, and Mordor, I think they could rely on one another's strengths a little bit more so, and they ended up doing very well for themselves. As far as the attackers go, I feel a bit bad for Rohan in this situation, because they were definitely hung out to dry by their allies a little bit. I do feel as though Y2K and Mini4Ninja, they needed to reinforce them quickly. Like, I understand here that Y2K has managed to get the most kills on his team by a significant margin, but I would still say that it was the wrong move to let Rohan just go in and accept all that damage. Like, Gondor are better in that situation than Rohan because of their armour and their shields. Rohan struggle, especially seeing a Secretariat brought mostly Riddermark Axeman, which... not the wrong idea either, because that would have given, you know, the attackers a lot of AP, a lot of good bite on the attack. But if you send them in against, you know, all of the Mordor archers, at least the lion's share of them were pointed at Rohan, and rightly so. Only a couple were there firing at Gondor, and that was because they knew they could get away with that. Gondor was in no danger of moving forward, and when they finally did move forward, Rohan was already pretty much on their last legs and were getting ripped apart by the beasts of Gorgoroth and the trolls in the back. So, again, only so much. The Guardian and Mini4Ninja, I imagine, you know, I haven't seen their names before, so I can only assume they're newer players playing as the Dol Amroth armies, and they didn't do a bad job, to be honest with you. Like I said, Mini4Ninja could have helped reinforce Rohan quicker, but again, I feel as though that's mostly on the Gondorian player in this situation. As for the Guardian, you know, filtering those units in is maybe not the best of ideas, even though he did manage to get some good kills on Rune with it. But at least they were both aggressive when the time came, which I do feel as though a lot of newer players tend to be far too passive. And they were aggressive to their credit. You know, maybe, you know, more tactics were needed. I think Newbie 1 was the best of the attackers, because he definitely did well against Rune. And in the Fortress Assault at the end, his damage that he was able to do was almost able to win the battle. Like I said, only the attackers were one good catapult shot or one good cavalry charge away from winning this battle. It was that close. Let's see what did the damage for Mordor, though. MSQ, 473 kills on the Nazgul. Obviously, when they get into a blob fight, like we saw plenty of in this battle, they're going to be able to do a ton of damage, as they did here. Temple Executioners did okay. The Olakai did very well for themselves. The Shadow Bows, maybe letting the side down a little bit. That is one thing I will say to give the attackers credit. They shut down the defensive Rangers very, very well. And that's to their credit, because Rangers are so devastating. The Standard Archers did far better, and of course the armor-piercing archers of the Temple Guard. Let's have a look down here. The Beasts of Gorgoroth, only 92 kills, but it was the morale damage I think they did to Rohan, which was the true victor here. And then the Melkor's Chosen also doing quite well for themselves. Also did really oh, sorry, cough caught in my throat there as I was mid-sentence. That's unfortunate. But Melkor's chosen. They really did slow down the Gondorian push, which maybe Gondor were put off by that, but they still should have moved forward far quicker. And as for Starkiller, Temple Executioner's doing very well. Bulldog's doing okay, but they were only really committed late on here within the fortress. Nazgul doing well. Temple Guard, his unit of Shadowbows did far better, to be fair. Olakai also breaking the 200 kill barrier. Beast of Gorgroth only 73 kills once again. I don't really know which one went into Rohan from the front. I assume it's this one because they got less kills. But regardless, the real sort of victory that they helped to instill was the morale breaking in Rohan's army, which they did to great effect. The Trolls did very well, and overall you'd have to say that Mordor's game plan was executed very, very nicely, and they ended up winning as a result. So big thank you to MSQ2. He sent me a couple of these 5v3s at this point, and both of them have turned out to be of high quality, particularly this one, even though the frame rate was a bit of a shame, but nothing can be done about that on this map, I suppose. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to be next. Like I said, I'm trying to work my way through my backlog. Like I said, if you've sent me stuff, I'm trying to get through it all, but I've got a lot to do. Do feel free to keep sending me stuff, but obviously, you know, it's a matter of just sort of getting to it when I can. It's not going to be you send it to me and then the video will be out in a couple of days. It doesn't really work like that. I've got to try and sort of balance it out as much as I can. And what will help your cause, to be fair, if you want me to do it faster, is a nice unique map like CIRITH Ungol, because we haven't seen it for quite some time. You know, that will help me bump it up to towards the upper end of the list. But yeah, big thank you to MSQ2 for sending this one in. Big thank you to all the players for being a part of this. Not sure what's going to be next. As I said, I'm going to sort of go through my backlog and choose an appropriate one. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.